The girls, along with Vorden and Peter, were patiently waiting inside Logan's room. The boys were quite calm, while Erin was tapping her foot away and about. Lately, she had been using all her spare time to practice her sword skills, yet she still could never achieve the same results as she did on the roof that day. Being here just seemed like a waste of her time. While Layla, who was standing next to her, felt a horrible bubbly feeling in her stomach. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it was going to jump out of her throat. "Can't you just tell us what this is all about?" Erin said, annoyed. "This is a very serious matter," Logan replied, sitting in his chair. He was currently playing with a trapezium-style Rubik's Cube made from metal. The inside used little small triggers to twist and turn the shape in all sorts of different directions. This made it multiple times harder than a standard Rubik's Cube. Each time he shifted one of the pieces, a large mechanical sound would be made. "And I would hate to repeat myself," Logan said as he continued to mess around. The room was silent, and the only thing that could be heard was the shifting sounds of Logan playing with the mechanical item. They waited and waited. Click. Click. "Will you put that damn cube away?" Erin shouted. "Before I shove it up your—" Just then the sound of the door was heard. "Looks like they're here," Logan said as he put the cube on the floor. Quinn entered first, and right behind him was Fex. As soon as Erin saw this, she immediately stepped back. "Quinn, what the hell is he doing here?" Vorden shouted. "Wait, I was the one that asked him to come here," Quinn said. "If it's something to do with Peter or the vampires, then he's going to be a big help. Remember, he helped us out last time, and he has stayed true to his words every time." "Look, I can tell I'm not wanted here," Fex said. "If you want me to leave, I'll leave." "No, please stay," Logan said. "Quinn is correct. This matter is very serious, and I do believe you will be a big help." Since Logan was the one who had said it and invited them here, the others felt like they at least needed to hear Logan out before they decided if he needed to be involved or not. "All right, before we begin, I believe, Quinn, you have something for me?" Logan asked as he held out his hand. "My sandwich?" "Oh." Quinn then threw the packaged sandwich over to Logan as a mechanical arm went into the air and grabbed it, unwrapping it for him and feeding him. They all sat there and watched Logan eat the sandwich when he was finally done. He turned to his computer. "Let us begin." As usual, when Logan was explaining things, he would display what he was looking at on his computer screen to the others through a hologram. As he went through files one by one, he would explain what they meant. "When I woke up this morning, I was surprised to see an envelope on the floor," said Logan. "I was afraid that it might be some type of something. I had my mechanical spiders go ahead and pick it up, then inspect it. I scanned it for any traces of tampering and to see what was inside. To my surprise, there was a small little nano-stick inside with a note." The screen had changed, and right now, a scanned version of the note was being displayed to the others. "In this nano-stick is some information on one of the Big Four family members, more specifically its leader known as True Dream. Our group has managed to gather extensive research into him, and here we can see all his wrongdoings in the past. The reason why I have passed this note on to you is that, unfortunately for all of you, True Dream will be arriving in a few days. Out of everyone, I thought perhaps with your abilities you might be able to do something to stop this madness. We do not wish any innocent to get hurt." At the end of the letter, attached to the bottom, was a stamp, and everyone in the room recognized it well. They had seen it many times on the television, and some of them have even written school reports about the group. It was the group known as Pure. "So what if True Dream is coming to the school?" Erin replied. "He does a routine visit to most of the military bases anyway. I fail to see why this is our problem, and why we should even trust the words coming from a military group." "I don't know," Layla said. "Maybe they know something that we don't, and I'm guessing it has something to do with that stick." "Although I would like to say congratulations," said Logan. "I believe anyone would have been able to come to that conclusion." The files changed once again, and this time they contained reports of the previous visits that True Dream had done. It contained detailed reports of each visit to the military base, but not only that, it also informed them of True Dream's true purpose for coming to the base. The fact that every time he visited, few students would be chosen, and soon after their abilities were gone. It also showed that there was a pattern to these things, and how he seemed to visit the second military base more often than the others. The expression on everyone's faces was sour as they read the reports. "I can't say that it doesn't surprise me," Quinn replied. "It's expected of this crappy system." "I agree, it's bad," Erin said. But still, I don't see how this involves us. We're just students, and they want us to stop this? He's from one of the big four families." That was when Vorden noticed something. "Wait, did you say the visit was in a few days? Isn't that—" "Looks like we have a winner," Logan said. "This is the reason why I called you all. I remember you telling me that for some reason, Duke had deliberately wanted Peter to reach a level 4. It seems strange, but why were they suddenly showing favoritism to Peter? And what's with the rush?" Putting these two things together makes sense. Not only was Peter originally weak, but he also had no strong family background. Sure, his family would be upset if he was to lose his powers or disappear, but no further steps would be taken, and everyone would soon forget, just like the students before, Logan explained. "And if they find out that Peter has no abilities anymore, they will start asking questions all over again, and it could lead them back to us," Vorden said. "Not just the vampire stuff, but when they find out we were close to Peter, they might start looking into the deaths and more." The group had to take their time to take everything all in. Out of all of them, the first one to leave the room was Erin. "I don't mean to be rude or anything, but I'm not that involved with you guys," Erin said. "I'm not a vampire, and I have no ties to what you did with the others. If I help out in this, it will only make me a bigger target. If you guys are caught trying to do anything, it could come back to me. I can't let that happen." As Erin left the room, not a single person had gone out to chase her. She had a point. She wasn't involved in any of this, and if she did help, it would only put her at risk. "We have 2 days," Logan said. "This Sunday, the students will be asked to gather in the assembly hall to welcome True Dream. Usually, the students are asked to stay back after the assembly. This is what is stated in the reports. They will then be taken somewhere, but where? Nobody knows. All that we know is that these students who are taken away lost their abilities. The world is explained that they have been punished for doing something bad, so their ability was taken away, and some even disappear. So, what plans do we have?" The group then continued to discuss what could happen and came up with different plans and scenarios in case different things happened. Finally, after a long talk, they had come up with a plan that seemed to have a good chance of working. And it was like Logan had said, for this to work, they would need everyone who was here to help. This included Fex, and surprisingly, he had agreed without saying too much. If he was discovered by his family now, he would get into too much trouble. But he knew that if the world discovered the existence of vampires and it was because of him, it didn't matter who his father was, no one could save him. With the plan set, everyone left the room. For now, they would all act as normal for the next couple of days until True Dream arrived. When everyone had finally left the room, Logan turned towards his computer once more and started to play a video file. Logan was a very cautious person and was paranoid everyone was out there to steal his work. The school didn't allow any cameras, but that didn't mean he couldn't install any of his own. In the VIP area, Logan had set tiny miniature cameras that were close to invisible to the human eye. He installed them not only on his front door, but outside as well. After receiving the letter in the morning, naturally the first thing he did was to check and see who had delivered the letter. As the video played, it was clear as day that Layla was the one who had delivered the letter. "Layla, huh? It seems like this little group of yours, Quinn, has their tiny little secrets. Although this one is not mine to tell." After meeting with Logan, the boys only had a little time before lunch would end, and they would head to their combat classes. That's when Fex asked a question that seemed out of the blue for everyone present. "So who is this True Dream guy? Is he a big deal?" Fex asked. Everyone stopped for a moment and turned to look at Fex strangely. It was impossible for someone who lived on Earth to have never heard of the big four family names. This fact had even shocked Quinn, and he started to think more and more that perhaps vampires were no longer on Earth. "Whoa, what's with all the creepy stares? So I don't know one person. Is he that big of a deal?" Fex asked. "Well, to be honest, I think Vorden would probably know more about him," Quinn replied. "I only know the basics." At this point, everyone was all ears to hear what Vorden had to say. "True Dream is different from the other big families," Vorden said. "The families had their powers long before the world knew they even existed, slowly passing them down from generations. And to be honest, even within all the ability users, the 3 families always reigned on the top." "The 3?" Quinn said. "Yeah, this is what I mean when I say the True Dream family are a little different. For one, most of his family consist of multiple different ability users. This is due to the nature of his ability. The second thing is True Dream had discovered the ability himself later in life. We believe he is the first to have this power." His ability is unique, and we're not even sure if he can pass it on for others to learn or not. The military who are partners with him like to keep it this way. Remember, it's only because of him that so many of those in power chose to not disobey. Anyone who tries to fight back or rebel get their powers taken away. There are even rumors it was because of True Dream that the pure faction had started in the first place. Once your ability gets taken away, there's no way for the body to learn another one, and for some reason, it seems like True Dream's ability stops you from completely producing any more mutant cells for your old ability. As you know, someone without an ability can't get very far in the outside world at the moment. It was true. Currently, in the outside world, most of the things that couldn't be done with abilities were already automated with technology. Everyone then received a universal income, but it wasn't enough credits to live on Earth, causing most of the humans to relocate to shelters on other planets, some of which were less protected than others. Although even after Fex had heard Vorden's explanation, this True Dream person still didn't seem like a big deal to him. Even if Fex's ability did get taken away, there was nothing he could do about his vampire powers. Also, it seemed like True Dream himself was very weak, so he didn't understand the fear associated with his powers that the others had. After the boys finished talking, it was time for them to split up and head for their combat classes. Before doing so, Peter changed his number from an ability level of 2 to a 3. This way, Bones could see he was progressing and report back to Duke. As usual during their combat class, the group was going through their kicks once again. It was expected since the theme for the lesson would carry on for a week. Only this time, Leo demonstrated how to block using your legs and counter certain moves using the palm of your hands instead. Fex and Quinn weren't really in the mood to practice all out. They were too busy thinking about the plan they had to initiate. So they were casually kicking and blocking each other's attacks at a normal speed. They had a lot on their minds as the plan wasn't perfect. It couldn't be perfect because they didn't know what True Dream was going to do, so the only thing they could try was improvising and plotting around a few things they did know what was going to happen. In the middle of their practice, Fex asked Quinn a question. "Hey, that ghoul, he evolved, right? So I'm guessing you sorted everything out. Do you know what he evolved into?" "You mean you can't tell?" Quinn replied as he palmed away a kick. "I can tell he smells different from before, but I don't think I've smelled his type, so what is he?" "He's something called a white." When Quinn spoke those words, Fex had suddenly stopped kicking. "Seriously? What a rare evolution. He must be quite powerful then, maybe even stronger than me in terms of physical abilities." "What makes you say that?" Quinn asked. "Well, a white's strength is mirrored by his creator's strength, and his creator has to be a leader," Fex explained, "which makes me think why he even left the ghoul in the first place, or why he hasn't come back to pick it up." "Well, it doesn't have to be a leader, right?" Quinn said, nervously hoping to throw Fex off this dangerous trail. "Any vampire can turn someone." Quinn had made sure to check this fact with the system beforehand, and it was true that most vampires could turn someone. However, depending on their power, it limited how many people they could turn. At most, a regular vampire could only turn one person. "Are you serious? Did they teach you nothing here?" Fex said as he let out a sigh. "Although a vampire can indeed turn anyone, it is against the laws. The only person who has permission to turn someone is the leader of one of the 13 families. If anyone else was to turn someone, that would be classified as illegal. The vampire and whoever created it would be taken back to be executed." Quinn gulped at hearing this piece of information. Is this what the system meant when they said they would now be coming after him? Was Quinn and Peter both considered illegal in the eyes of the vampire families? After all, Quinn was an unusual vampire, as the system had stated. As he was busy thinking and taking it all in, the system had interrupted. "Hey, don't worry, you are not illegal," the system said. "However, I didn't want to tell you this so soon, for you still are not strong enough and don't have the classifications of one. But ever since you turned Peter and created your family name, you too are now a vampire leader. But as I stated before, if you want to live, never reveal this information to anyone." Although Fex didn't say anything else, he had kept a few things to himself. Whites were known to only follow one person. Otherwise, their natural nature would take over, and they would go on a rampage. Many of them had to be destroyed once their masters had been slain, otherwise they would attack everyone in sight. The fact that Peter hadn't done that meant whoever had turned him was still close by. Fex was no fool. Judging by the frightened look on Quinn's face, he could only assume Peter was created by him, and perhaps Quinn's leader wasn't aware of this certain event. Fex didn't know how close he was to the truth, and how far he was at the same time. The whole load of information had just been given to Quinn at once. He felt like it was pretty relevant to the situation he was in, and it would have been nice if he had been hinted about it beforehand. The way the AI acted with the system was starting to bug Quinn. The lesson was coming to its end, so Leo decided to round up everyone to give a few pointers. This was Quinn's chance to ask the system the questions he needed. "Look, I don't understand anything," Quinn said. "I understand maybe you didn't want to tell me before. The less I know about it, the better, hoping I wouldn't get too involved, but right now, Fex is here, and if I make a mistake and slip up, he will easily be able to tell." "I'm sorry, Quinn," the system replied. "I want to tell you, but sometimes I can't. When the Creator created me, he chose to make it so certain information was revealed only when necessary. There are things I wish to tell you, but cannot." "Then what can you tell me? Earlier Fex mentioned there being family leaders, and then you mentioned that I was one as well. What does he mean by that?" "The vampires are controlled by a council. The council is split up into 13 different leaders and a vampire king or queen. These are also what are known as families. When you created Peter and made your family name, you automatically became a member of the council." Quinn couldn't believe what he was hearing. Just a second ago he didn't even know a vampire council existed, and now apparently he held a high position of power. "But then, why would they be after me?" Quinn asked. "And wouldn't this mean I would be safe if they found out about Peter?" "Quinn, the vampire race like to seem like they are working together, but they are just as cruel and power-hungry as humans. When the vampire king or queen decides to go into eternal slumber, then a new king shall be selected from one of the 13 leaders. While the current king or queen is still present, they must do as they say, but once they disappear, it will turn into a cruel battleground. You are a leader in name only. A shortcut was created due to the system. A lowly vampire like you is too weak. To become a vampire leader, one at least must have the rank of a vampire lord. Although this isn't the only reason why they will be after you, unfortunately, I can't say any more." The vampire leaders were at the rank of a vampire lord, but Quinn had never met a leader before, so he had no reference for their strength. The only other vampire he had met was Fex. "What about Fex? Do you know what rank he is at?" Quinn asked. "Fex is on the cusp. He is not quite at the next evolution stage, which would be a vampire noble, but he is stronger than most vampires out there. The ranks are as follows. You have a vampire, vampire noble, a vampire knight, a vampire lord, and finally, the vampire king or queen. There are also the subclasses such as Peter within these ranks, but they can never rise above their leaders or creators." Quinn was hoping to hear that Fex was quite a high-ranking vampire, perhaps even one just below the vampire lord. Instead, he just managed to get confirmation that there were a few more classes even above Fex. It was as the system said, for whatever reason that the system wouldn't tell him if they were to learn he was a vampire leader, they would try to kill him, and with his strength right now, he wouldn't even last a second. "These families, why are there 13 of them? Couldn't all the vampires just unite under one banner?" "The humans and vampires share more than they would like to think. Just like humans were selfish and decided to keep their abilities to themselves, it is the same for vampires. Each vampire has a basic set of skills. However, the 13 different families are each divided into different abilities they have. This does not mean they are all related by blood. However, before learning an ability, a vampire must go through a blood ritual with that family, meaning they can never go against them. Only then will they teach that vampire their ability. An example of this is the Sanguinous family that Fex is a part of, who can control string. Still, this does not mean a vampire cannot learn an ability outside of the 13, but if they chose to do this, they will never be promoted within the ranks of the family they have chosen to follow. This information disappointed Quinn a little. He was hoping at some point he would be able to find an ability for Peter to use, but it seemed like each family kept a lock on their abilities, not allowing outsiders to learn them. And what were the chances Quinn would be able to stumble upon another book that vampires were able to learn? Thinking about this caused another question to pop into his head. "Wait," Quinn said. "Does that mean my ability belongs to one of the 13? Is that why they're trying to kill me?" "Your shadow ability is not part of the 13 families," the system replied. This was the first bit of good news, Quinn thought. If his ability wasn't part of the 13 families, even if he used it, the vampires wouldn't know he was a vampire, and they could think he was just another ability user. But I warn you to not use your ability in front of others. The only thing I can say for now is your ability carries history for the vampires that they wish to forget. They would only target you more." "Doesn't that mean Fex is targeting me then?" said Quinn. "I believe he may be too young to know about what happened in the past. They most likely do not teach the young ones about this either. This is all you need to know about this matter. Only when you are strong enough, Quinn, I promise I can tell you then." This whole vampire business seemed like it was more trouble than it was worth at the moment. Just when Quinn thought he could finally stop hiding his strength, it seemed like he needed to hide it even more. Though right now he would have to deal with one problem at a time, and the immediate problem in front of him was Peter and Duke. Over at the elemental training hall, they too were doing the same lessons as usual, and as lessons were about to finish, they had free time to do what they wanted, and once again, Bones had come over with his 2 men and confronted Peter. "Peter!" Bones shouted. "Well, would you look at that? You finally managed to reach level 3. It looks like you're going to make it to level 4 in no time after all. What do you say to one more sparring match before tomorrow, huh?" Bones was frustrated after taking a beating from Vorden last time, and he himself was a level 4 user, while Peter was still a level 3, and a new one at that. Bones was confident he could still beat him. Even if he had the potential to be as strong as him with his earth powers, he couldn't have learnt that many skills with the ability in such a short amount of time. Peter turned around and took one look at Bones. "You're too weak for me." Vorden was standing by the side of the group and was glancing over, as usual. He currently had the level 4 earth ability copied, just like last time in case this situation was to repeat itself. "These guys, I guess they didn't learn from last time. Maybe I've gotten softer hanging around with Quinn all the time," Vorden thought. But as he was thinking that, he heard Peter's voice. "You're too weak for me," Peter said, and this time there wasn't a hint of fear in his voice. "This is not good," Vorden worried. "Before I had to babysit a weak crybaby Peter, now I have to babysit this. I'm not sure which one I prefer." Vorden couldn't reveal he was involved with Peter, so he couldn't step in and was waiting all he could do. For now, he watched carefully, preparing himself for the worst. Standing in a fighting stance, just to the side of the group. "What the heck?" Bones said. "Oh, I get it now. You think as you got a little bit of power and now a level 3, you're a big shot, huh? Well, think again," before Bones could even finish what he was saying. Peter's hands had gripped and wrapped around Bones' mouth, his fingers placed at the side of his jaw. "Did I not tell you to go away?" Bones immediately retaliated, trying to create a pillar of earth from below Peter's feet. As soon as Peter had felt the slightest bit of vibration from below, he knew what was coming. But he didn't move. He waited for the pillar to rise while continuing to hold on to Bones. Then, at the last second, as the pillar rose from below, Peter stepped back and pulled Bones into his pillar, allowing it to hit him right in the chin. "Bones!" one of his friends shouted as they came running forward. Then, suddenly out of nowhere, a large wall of earth had come between the two groups, and at the same time, Bones had been blocked off from Peter's view. Now standing by Peter's side was Vorden. "Ignore them! We have to get out of here! Now just run!" But Peter remained still as if he wanted to continue fighting against them. "Look, just ignore them! They're right? They're not worth our time," Vorden argued. "Huh, you're right about that," Peter said as he took off with Vorden out of the training center. As Vorden and Peter were outside, Vorden decided it was best if they headed back to the dorm room for now and stayed there. While heading back, he started to think about the confrontation. It had shown Vorden how much Peter had changed. Seeing how he acted against Bones, he couldn't imagine what Peter might do if he was to be put in a room with True Dream or Duke. Inside the dorm room, Vorden and Peter hadn't said much. They no longer were as close as before when Vorden used to mentor Peter. When Vorden looked at Peter now, he no longer would see the same Peter. He just got this weird feeling, and he found it strange that Peter would often just remain still in one place for long periods. Coming from Vorden, that said a lot about how much Peter had changed. Finally, Quinn had returned from his class, and the first thing Vorden did was ask if the two of them could speak alone in private. "Sorry about this, Peter, do you mind?" Quinn asked. "If that is what you wish, sir," Peter said as he went back to sit down in his seat. The two of them decided to take a walk down the hallway until they had reached a window. Making sure there wasn't anyone who could be listening in to their conversation, They looked outside, allowing the breeze to touch their face as they talked. Vorden had explained what had happened today in the training hall, and he also told him his worries about Sunday when he was to meet True Dream. "I feel like you want to suggest something to me?" Quinn said. "I know I have mentioned it before," said Vorden, "but last time I said it half-heartedly. But this time, Quinn, I'm serious. I think we should cut our ties with Peter." Although Vorden had sugar-coated his words, Quinn knew what he was getting at. They should Peter. However, with everything going on, Quinn couldn't say he hadn't had the same thoughts. Lately, the thought was entering his head more often. This Peter wasn't the same one he knew. It was clear the old Peter was already gone. "Trying to go through with this plan, I think, is riskier than getting rid of Peter," Vorden said. "I think we can do Peter justice when we leave school in 2 years. We'll look after his family. We can make our faction, and the money we earn from being travelers, we will send them a portion each month." Vorden was making a good case, but Quinn wondered how Peter's family would feel after finding out their son had died or disappeared. Would they care if they had money or not? Even if Peter wasn't the same as before, he was still him, right? There had to still be a little of him inside there somewhere. "I, for one, don't think this is a good idea," the system said. "First, you will be unable to Peter even if you decide to go through with this. You would have to stand by as you watch someone you know, Peter, and although he is loyal to you, he would not just stand there without putting up a fight. The second thing goes to the matter we spoke of before. You were lucky Peter turned into a white. It is quite a powerful ally to have. Right now, you need to gather and keep all the power you can get. It's not a question of if the vampires will come, Quinn, it's when." Suddenly, as these thoughts filled Quinn's mind, a strange feeling came over him once again. It was the family connection from the blood ritual. "I can't do it, Vorden," Quinn said. "He's family now, and so are you and the others." Quinn didn't know this, but as he turned and said these words to Vorden, his eyes were lit up bright red. Vorden assumed that perhaps this matter went far beyond just the conversation they had now, and had something to do with Quinn himself. "All right, Quinn, we'll stick with the plan." The next day it was the weekend, so the group had no classes for the day. However, they were unable to spend their time as freely as the other students did. Instead, they met in Logan's room once more. Each of them went over the details of their plan, while Logan also handed each a strange, round, circular pin to be put on their clothes. It looked similar to a button and blended well into their uniform. There was also a separate circular small speaker that was to be placed in the ear. These two items were a set that was to be used to communicate with each other. The only person who didn't receive one was Peter, as they knew he would be taken away. However, a microphone was once again installed into his watch so they could hear everything that was happening. After a good night's rest, it was finally Sunday, the day True Dream would finally arrive at the school. It was now Sunday morning, and the 8 sergeants had all gathered inside the portal hall. 4 of the second-year sergeants stood on one side, and 4 of the first-year sergeants stood on the opposite side, forming 2 lines in front of the portal. Each of them had straightened postures and were unmovable, assuming their best attitude before the single portal. The said portal had been pulled out and placed in the center of the room. Although the color of this portal was neither green, orange, nor red, it was hued in the purity of white, making it look like a blank canvas. Just like the traveling stations, the white color indicated that the destination of the portal was Earth. The doors to the training hall soon opened, and every one of the sergeants immediately gave a salute to the 4 men who had entered the room. Duke, the head of the second-year students, Nathan, the head of the first-year students, and Mike stood in the center. Out of all the generals there, Mike was the oldest and was well respected. Even though he didn't hold the highest rank, he was still in charge of the communications that would transpire between military bases. Then, finally, standing behind the 3 of them, was a man in a black and white tailored suit. The others had never seen him wear anything else other than that. It was the head general, Paul. "Duke, I hope you already have everything prepared, yes?" Paul asked. "Yes, everything is proceeding well, and we should reach the quota as usual. All the students will gather in the assembly hall this afternoon. We shall advance with everything else right after," Duke replied. "Good," said Paul, looking at another comrade next. "Mike, how are the preparations for the upcoming event going?" "Not to worry. We still have a leeway of a month before the event. Students will be able to choose which events they want to participate in soon. I'm sure that will come out on top this year. I know we will," Mike said as he laughed loudly. "Nathan, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you," said Paul. The upcoming portal outing for the first-year students will not be a green portal like how we originally planned it, but it will be an orange portal instead." Hearing this, Nathan's eyes widened. "Sir, this is crazy. They're only first-year students. Why do we need to push them so fast?" "There are reports that the Dalki are becoming more aggressive with their exploration. We must compete with them. This order has been made by all of us, so we must push more, and at the same time, we cannot willingly lose our regular men. Earth is the #1 priority, and we must protect it at all cost." "So they chose to sacrifice the children instead?" Nathan complained back, utterly distraught by the news. "War will soon be waged, and the Dalki do not discriminate, whether they are children or not. Age will not matter to them when that time comes. They should get the experience now. I will permit you to send a couple of sergeants with them for their safeguarding rather than the regular teachers, but that's it. This is an order, and it's final. I don't want to welcome any opposition." Usually, green portals would be used for the first years. They were the safest, containing basic and intermediate beasts. Once the student reached the second-year stage, they would then, only once, go out on an orange portal expedition. Orange portals posed a heightened risk. There were shelters on the planet, but the whole planet had yet to be explored. The moment military arrived on that planet, the goal would be to expand and explore the areas of the planet that had yet to be explored. If they were lucky enough to finish their exploration, it would get the go-ahead and the portal color would change to green. If they discovered high-level beasts, then the portal would retain its orange color. Nathan felt like the first years were way too inexperienced to do such a task. The main difference when traveling to an orange portal planet was that they would travel as a single unit instead, in teams. Furthermore, the school had yet to enlighten the students about the importance of working together. The generals now stood a few feet away from the circular teleporter. Paul lifted his wrist to look at his watch, checking the time. It was currently 8:59. 9 o'clock. As soon as the watch displayed 9, the portal started to warp slightly, and 3 figures could be seen coming through. Standing in the center was a bald man who wore sunglasses, and he had also donned a suit. "Jack!" greeted Paul. "It's been a while," he said as he went to the others and hugged them. "That's him," Faye whispered to Haley, who was standing next to her. "I can't believe that 2 of the strongest people on our planet look like shady businessmen." Although Jack Truedream didn't look impressive by himself, the 2 men who came out of the portal beside him did. One of them was a large fellow whose height was nearly 7 feet. He was completely covered in a gray-colored beast equipment, which looked similar to a rhino, while he carried a large 2-handed axe on his back. By his side was an individual who was the complete opposite, a small, skinny fellow. This person was wearing beast equipment that was dark green in hue and had a mask covering his face, although instead of heavy armor like the other person, he wore light armor. However, just from gazing at both of their equipment, Faye could tell that they were high-level beast gear, way beyond that of the advanced tier. Jack truly had brought his strongest guards along. It reminded Faye that even though they were allies, still at the same time they weren't. The fact that Jack felt the need to bring these 2 was to remind them of the power that his family had. Right now, there was an odd balance between the ability users in the world that caused small-scaled skirmishes to happen. The military's strongest force was the 8 head generals that were in charge of each of the military bases. The leader of this group was the head general in Military Base 1. In addition to them was the Big 4 from the 4 families. They were the current decision-makers in the affairs concerning the world, and whenever there was a serious matter to be decided, they would call a meeting between themselves. Once in a while, though, the families or the military would have to show their strength just to make sure that the others wouldn't get the idea of rebelling. "How about some breakfast together? My chiefs have prepared a great meal," Paul asked. "No thanks, I already had my breakfast on the way here," Jack replied. "I was hoping to speak to your sergeants who discovered one of our family members. I believe that when his body was discovered, it was found along with 2 other students, is that correct? I wish to investigate this matter before I do anything else. If you don't mind, that is." "Oh, honestly, I'm not sure of the details myself," Paul replied. "I surmise that Haley was the one who wrote the report and sent it off to you." "Haley?" Paul called her, and she immediately rushed over, giving a salute to both Paul and Jack. "Please, if you can, help Jack in any way possible." "Of course, sir," Haley replied. That was the real reason why Jack had decided to visit the military base. His original plan was to visit the particular place later. However, when he learned that one of his men died in the same way as one of his previous guys, he felt the need to investigate. Perhaps whatever had Ian was the same thing that killed one of his top men. He was hoping that he could find answers from the two students who were found with the body at the time. Right now, both Jack and Haley were inside the medical office. Haley was sitting down at her computer, while Jack was standing just above her shoulder, taking a peek at the screen. "Is this the report you wanted?" Haley asked as she brought up the file. Jack gave it a quick read-over, and it was the same report that he had received from her before. "When you recovered his body, other than the two boys that were with him in the place, was there anything else or anything inside?" Jack asked. "Nothing that I can remember, although now that you mention it, it did seem a little strange," Haley said. "What do you mean?" "Well, even though everything was supposedly destroyed, the whole training center was left untouched, due to it being made of lithium. It looks like not a single beast had managed to get inside the place. Yet, when we entered, it seemed like the whole place had been trashed, as if a huge brawl had taken place." "Do you remember any other details?" Jack asked. Haley then went into detail describing what the scene looked like, how there were several mangled doors, and how crumbled chairs from the arena were all over the place. She then also went into detail about Ian's body when they recovered it. The bottom half was still intact, while the top half had the same two bite marks on it. She also did a quick on-the-spot evaluation and found that the body seemed to have died not too long ago. "It sounds like Ian must have fought something while he was in there," Jack said. "Ian's ability was magnetism, judging by the scene you were describing. Whatever he was fighting with at the time managed to kill him. Do you have the names of the two boys? If they were there, then they must have at least seen something." Although Haley felt the same way, the boys had already been interrogated several times over the event. Right now, Haley felt like the most possible thing was a beast. Something might have attached itself to one of the students and got on to their scent. It followed behind them, killing people in the process and causing small puncture wounds on their necks. This was the only logical conclusion she could come to. Still, she didn't want to inform Jack of all the previous investigations they had already done. He was in a way higher position than her. She had also heard rumors of his bad side. At first, Jack was a pleasant person. He thanked the military for helping and taking him in, promising to always help them out. But as he got better abilities and more people on his side, the demands he started making were ridiculous. Nowadays, if he didn't get his way, there was no telling what would happen. The two students' files were brought up. The first one was Quinn. Jack quickly scanned it over, but as soon as he saw he was only a level 1 ability user, he quickly disregarded it. The next person was Vorden, who interested him. On his file, it stated his initial testing was a level 5, but next to it in brackets, they said it was subject to changes, and it was also stated that he was an original. The school already knew Vorden's power due to the information passed on to the previous school, but just for filing's sake, they took down his initial score. As Jack was reading through the file, that's when he spotted the name Vorden Blade. After reading this name out loud, a memory had popped into his head. Several years ago, Jack had had his power for a few years now, and his family members were starting to grow. He had been called in for a meeting. This meeting was between the big three powers, the strongest originals. He was invited to a private island where a large mansion sat on the highest point. He remembered each of their presence that day as they sat at a round table opposite each other. The pressure coming from each of them was immense. After all, they were the strongest people in the world. They didn't rule it by political gains or winning the people's hearts like in the past. Instead, they ruled it through their power with an iron fist, and just by looking at them he could see that. There was no military there, no government. There was just the three leaders of the family and himself. They didn't need any guards. What was the point when they were stronger than any guards they could hire? The meeting had come as a surprise, because the reason he was called was because they wanted him to have a seat at the leaders' table. The leaders' table consisted of the 8 head generals and currently the heads of the 3 big families. They had acknowledged the strength Jack and his family had at that time, and on that day it went from the big 3 to the big 4. However, one thing had stuck in his mind. There was one rule they stated before he left: to never touch the Blade family. At first, Jack thought it was a joke as he started to laugh. He had heard of every single one of them out there. He even knew several other big-name original families out there in the real world, but he had yet to have heard of this Blade family before. But soon after, he realized that each of them was deadly serious. The pressure they were emitting just seconds ago seemed to completely vanish at the mention of this family name. "Can you tell me why?" Jack asked. "If you ever meet one of them, you have two choices," one of the men said. "Stay away or help them, but if you go against them, not even we can help you." At the time, he was truly frightened. Looking at the report once again, he looked at the name carefully. Could this be related to the same family they were talking about? Jack thought. Would they care if I got rid of one kid, or maybe they were behind the deaths of my men in the first place? He started to think about what to do, and decided to go confront Vorden. However, every time he felt like he was about to do this, images popped back up in his head of the strong men on the table that day. Just what had gotten them so worked up? "Perhaps it's best if I just leave it alone for now," Jack said. "I could always get some more men." A few hours had passed, and lunch break had just passed. Although it was a Sunday, all the students had been told to gather in the assembly hall for a special occasion, while the others were wondering what it was excitedly and chattering away. Quinn and his group had stomach aches, and their blood was pumping wildly around their body. They knew exactly why they had all been called. A part of them didn't want the letter to be true, but they could no longer escape reality. Standing inside the assembly hall were all the first-year students and the second-year students. In the assembly hall, a total of 1,000 students stood around. All of them stood nice and straight, staring in the direction of the stage. Right now, standing up on the stage was Duke, and behind him were the two men who had arrived with Jack. "All right, is everyone ready?" Logan asked. Right now, Logan had a small earpiece that acted as a microphone, while the others apart from Peter had the same. It was time for them to put their plan into action. "Ready," they all replied. The assembly hall was split into two halves, with all the first-year students standing on the left of the stage and the second-year students standing right of the stage. The fact that all the students in the school were told to gather together and not just a single year told them it would be a big event. Then the two sections on each side would be further split up. They were grouped by each homeroom class, which contained about 50 students. Quinn and Vorden were standing relatively close to each other, while Peter was standing a row in front of them so they could keep an eye on him, while the girls stood directly at the front of the class. Their section was stationed closest to the stage, while right at the back towards the exit was Logan. To his surprise, it seemed like Fex was in the same homeroom class as him. Logan didn't turn up to homeroom class much, and if it was anyone else, they would have been punished for this. But because Logan was a VIP student from a rich family, he obtained special privileges. Duke was currently standing on stage giving the students a speech, telling them about all the achievements that the base had made so far and what the upcoming schedule for the first-year and second-year students would look like for the rest of the year. While listening to this, Vorden was preparing himself, or more specifically, he was preparing someone else. "Rayton, you remember the plan, right?" Vorden asked. "As soon as you finish with what needs to be done, then you get out of there. I don't care if someone looks interesting to fight, or if someone looked at you the wrong way. We need to disappear immediately after you're done." "Will you shut up?" Rayton snapped back. "For the last 2 days you've said the same thing over and over to me. I know that if I don't do what you said, I won't hear the end of it." Vorden hated the fact that the plan required him to use Rayton. If he could, he would have used himself, but the task that was given to him relied on him having two abilities, and Vorden could only control one. But of course, using Syl was out of the question, so that left him with Rayton. The two abilities he needed were already stored for the day. Right now, they just needed for the assembly to be over. Quinn, on the other hand, was worried for Peter. The system recommended giving Peter some of his blood, which he did, and he gave the order not to attack Duke or Jack. With the extra blood, it made Peter more loyal, to the point he would obey every order. Loyalty to one's master was also distance-based. The further away, the less influence the master's orders had, but with fresh blood from Quinn in his system, he would have no option but to obey the commands he was given. Eventually, the power would fade away, but for a short period like this one, it would be enough. The only way that Peter could disobey this order is if his life was put on the line, then self-preservation would override Quinn's orders. "Other than an update about the schedule for you all, we also have a special guest here today. He visited us last year, and he is here to visit us again." Duke pointed at one of the men who sat at the leader's table and was the leader of one of the Big Four. "Please clap for Mr. True Dream," Duke said as he walked off the stage. Mr. True Dream then got up from his seat and came up from the side of the stage. As he stepped forward, so did the two guards next to him. The students stared at them in awe. They had never seen such impressive beast gear in their life, and couldn't imagine just how much it would cost them to own one. Knowing that they were from the True Dream family, they would also have some impressive abilities, However, as most of the students looked at Mr. Truedream, they were quite disappointed. He wasn't wearing any beast gear, and he didn't give off the same presence as other leaders they had seen. However, there were a few in the room who felt differently. They could feel confidence exuding from his body, and one of these students was Fex. As he was looking at him, he was starting to sweat. The sight of Mr. Truedream reminded him of the 13 vampire leaders. This was the presence of someone who was on top of the world. Many of you should know who I am, but just in case, my name is Jack Truedream, leader of the Truedream family and also the owner of Dreamland City. I have a close relationship with the military, and I visit every base each year. But I have to say, out of all the military bases, this is my favorite one. I also seem to get the most and the best gifts directly delivered to my doorstep here, Jack said with a smile. Did you hear that? He said we're the best military base out there, a student whispered. Are you an idiot? He probably says that to all the military bases he goes to, another student responded. True, but still, if we could get into his faction, we would be set for life. I hear he even provides free housing for all those in his city, as long as you join their team, of course, the first student replied. While the other students were excited to see Truedream, Quinn's group could see the other hidden message behind his words. Most likely those gifts he was talking about were the students given to him right after this assembly. He was declaring it in the open, while no one knew what was happening. While the speech continued from the bottom of Logan's sleeve, one of the small mechanical spiders crawled down his shirt and hopped off his shoe. It was the same size as a regular small spider and made next to no noise as it moved about. It continued to crawl across the floor until it had eventually reached the stage. All right, guys, it's all set, Logan whispered. Jack then spoke his final words. In a month, I will be coming to watch all of you at the intermilitary base event. Perform well, and those that impress me will be given an extended invitation. With that, the speech was over, and Jack walked off stage with his 2 guards behind him, heading off to a location out of sight from all the students, where the mechanical spider quickly followed along. As Jack left the stage, Duke returned. He had one last thing to say to everyone. You heard the man. Work hard so you can achieve a great future for yourselves. I expect our school to come out on top at the intermilitary base event. Before I dismiss you all to enjoy the rest of your day off, I would like these 8 students to stay behind. Ray Dem, Howard Hubby, Wilford Green, Sarah Beeswax, Michael Briscoe, Amy Yellop, Peter Chuck. After hearing Peter's name, everyone's stomachs sunk a little. This was it. They needed to get into action right after he called out the final name. And finally, Erin Haley. These students please stay behind and come to the front of the stage. The rest may leave. The students left the room one by one. It was their day off, and they didn't want to hang around in the assembly hall any longer. Most of them were leaving with a smile on their faces, excited about the upcoming event. Jack informed the students about his plans to be at the intermilitary base event. They were now eager to impress him and wanted to start practicing right away. It would be a shortcut to the top if Jack extended them an invitation to join his family. Usually, unless one was extremely talented, they would have to build a reputation for themselves from their factions and work their way up. Nearly everyone who wished to become a traveler had a goal of joining the Big Four. Even if you created your faction, it was beneficial to work under one of the Big Four for protection from the others. However, not all the students had smiling faces as they left the hall. Some didn't feel the same way. Hey, would you move? A student said as he accidentally bumped into Quinn on his way out. What was wrong with that guy? Another student said. Quinn hadn't moved, but he wasn't the only one who had remained motionless. After hearing the final name that had been called, the whole group was shocked at what they had heard. The final name was Erin. As Logan waited outside, he realized the others hadn't come out with him, so he took a bite of his sandwich before he said, Guys, come on, we need to start our plan straight away. I know this is a shock, but that shouldn't deviate us from the original plan. Instead of saving one, now we just need to save 2. With Logan's words, the group quickly snapped out of it and made their way out of the assembly hall with everyone else. Worrying about it or thinking about why Erin was chosen wasn't going to do them any good. The more time wasted, the less likely the plan would work. The students, whose names were announced, went to the front of the stage, wondering what was about to happen. Peter was also up front, but his expression hadn't changed much. He was informed of what was going to happen and wasn't worried about it. He trusted his master Quinn. He would just follow his master's instructions and trust his judgment to make everything right. Erin, on the other hand, was panicking. Her head was spinning. They picked me, but why? Aren't I one of the top students? They would never pick a student as good as me, right? She thought to herself. But the realization had hit her, and her mask was starting to crumble away. The thoughts and memories she had kept within were starting to surface. A few days ago, inside the second year's head office, Duke had been given a bunch of files that matched the criteria they were looking for. That's when he stumbled upon Erin's file. "Now this is interesting," he said. Erin was a level 5 student, and she also had quite an expensive ability too. She wasn't an original, but the ice element ability was expensive to get a hold of, especially at level 5, so Duke wondered why she hadn't been selected. After reading the file, everything made sense. Her family worked under one of the Big Four, and they had established a shelter on one of the orange portal planets. Because of the risk involved, the family had paid them well and had gained quite the status. A few years had gone by, and it looked like the exploration of the planet was nearly over. It was the main task that had been given to her family. They had done a good job getting rid of the few advanced-tier beasts that lived on the place. Erin was eventually sent back to Earth to finish her normal school education. She went to a good private school, as her parents could afford it, and even bought her a strong ability. It was an opportunity that they never had. The exploration of the planet had been completed, and Erin had gone back over the summer to celebrate with her parents. At last, they had moved up high enough in the family's ranks to obtain a place back on Earth. But on that fateful day, a Dalki ship had invaded the planet. The Dalki came and attacked. Seeing her family and friends raise their weapons to fight, she wanted to help too. But before she could even join in the fight, her father had stopped her. "No, Erin, you are not strong enough yet. Now get out of here," he screamed. "But I can help," Erin cried. "Just let me help you." "Look, I didn't want to say this, but you're weak. You will only get in our way." And at that moment, she witnessed her father being... As she stood there frozen, one of her father's old friends managed to rescue her. Her family did their best to protect all the civilians on the planet, and even other factions that they once squabble over territory had come to help. But it wasn't enough, and all they could do was wait for help to arrive. At this point, nearly everybody that could fight had died. All of this havoc had been created by only 2 Dalki. However, the defenders had managed to kill one of them, but the other remained alive. The remaining Dalki had set its eyes on the emergency shelter, but just as it was about to attack, help arrived. A female dressed in pure sparkling white came through the portal. Erin saw her pass by. She fought against the Dalki on her own, and was able to go toe-to-toe with it. The swordsmanship that had been displayed was light and silent. It was as if her feet never even touched the floor. She would continuously parry the Dalki's attacks, while dishing out attacks of her own in between, until eventually she defeated it, and the Dalki had died. Erin cried a lot that day. Her tears wouldn't stop coming. She cried for all the people that had been lost. The woman who had defeated the Dalki walked up to Erin, but unlike what the others thought should be said to a child, she didn't give any words of comfort to Erin, but only gave her the harsh truth. "If you ever want to see your family or friends die again, then you have to become stronger. You have to be the best, so nobody can take anything away from you, because your tears won't bring your family and friends back." And that was the last time Erin had seen her family or the strange female warrior. She had been selected because she no longer had the status her family once had. With everyone gone, she had been sent a token gesture of money from one of the Big Four, just enough for her to live off of for the rest of her life, but the political protection their family had was now gone. But what was the use? Money couldn't bring back the dead. The only thing that remained in her mind from that day were the words spoken to her by that strange woman. She would become the best. Erin had chosen to live by those words that day, and whenever she felt tired or wanted to give up, that same memory would come back to her. She needed proof that what she was doing was working. She thought she had gotten better, but the day they had met the Dalki once again, she had frozen in place, and the only thing she could do was run. Right now, though, she was being led together with the others to a certain room. Everything she had worked for up to this point was all going to be taken away. Following closely behind the row of students was the mechanical spider Logan had sent after them. Right now, Logan had returned to his room, and he was monitoring the direction of the spider. He could see where they were heading, and would be able to inform the others of what needed to be done. He was also looking at a 3D map of the whole school. On it, there were several different indicators, each one being a different person from their group. The spider and Peter were different colors, for clarity's sake. "Okay, Fex. It looks like they're heading for one of the meeting rooms located on the second floor of the west side. Layla, you stay close behind him. Once you turn and reach the end of the corridor, stay and wait in position. The two guards were stuck to Jack like glue. When Quinn and Vorden are ready, I will give the command and you guys will move out. Understood, everyone?" "Understood," they replied. Jack entered the meeting room followed by the 8 students. One of his guards had also entered the room with them, while the other stayed outside, guarding the door. Quinn and Vorden were at one side of the corridor, while Fex and Layla were at the other side, patiently waiting for Logan's order. "All right, Rayton," Vorden said. "Looks like you're up." In the meeting space, the 8 selected students were all lined up in one row. They stood straight, nervously, all the while thinking just why they had been chosen to meet Jack Truedream. Concurrently, Erin was doing everything to keep her cool.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.